Hello again, and thank you for staying with us. Now, this week, UNICEF marked World Children's Day with the release of a report detailing the living conditions of children and adolescents in the country. The report's focus areas include health, education, water and sanitation, as well as social protection. It is an attempt to raise awareness among policymakers as well as practitioners of the challenges and vulnerabilities that children and young people face in the country. To discuss this, I am joined by Sudeshan Reddy, who's the Acting Chief of Communications for UNICEF South Africa. Mr. Reddy, good to have you on the program this evening. So the UNICEF report on children and adolescents in the country paints a concerning picture, if you will, of the challenges that young people face in South Africa. Can you highlight the most alarming findings of the 2024 situation analysis and what they mean for the future of South African children?
Thank you, Nhlanhla, and a very good evening to your viewers. Look, the picture is concerning, as you said. We see issues of what's called multidimensional poverty in the country, where an estimated 62% of children in South Africa are classified as living in multidimensional poverty, which is various levels of poverty. It's even higher in rural areas at 88%, and in urban areas it's 41%, which is also concerning. In addition, there's the issue of nutrition, which is a concern in the country, and it's estimated that only 21% of children in the country get what's considered an acceptable minimum standard of nutrition. There's also issues about crime and violence, which your viewers know well about, and we've got our statistics from Statistics South Africa and the South African Police Service, which show that a disconcertingly high number of children experience online sexual and physical violence, both in their home and other environments. So yes, the picture is concerning, but it should not leave us despondent.
The picture is concerning, and this report also does mention that 62% of children in the country are living in multidimensional poverty, with rural areas, for instance, being disproportionately affected. What steps can government or even the private sector then take, Mr. Reddy, to indeed address these stark inequalities, but also improve the living conditions for children, especially in rural areas?
You know, there are interventions already happening in Nhlanhla, and I'll give you an example being the Child Support Grant, which reaches 13 million children in South Africa. It's a remarkable initiative globally, but it is not enough. So to answer your question, what more can be done? There needs to be more focus on job creation initiatives in rural areas to encourage people to not leave so that they have sustainable livelihoods. There needs to be a focus on good quality education in these areas. Rural areas need to be sourced with schools that are well funded and well run, so that you have a cadre of young people coming out of this who are informed and educated and not left behind. So that's what you begin with. You focus on early childhood development. You make sure that there are safe, secure, stimulating spaces for children because their parents have to work and they're not left at home and unattended, that there's care and protection, that there's vigilance, and that communities are involved. We can't always say government must do only. It's also about ordinary people getting involved because the theme for World Children's Day this year is listen to the future. They are the future. So it's really about looking at what works and scaling it. And just very briefly, in South Africa, there's an initiative run by the Department of Social Development called Safe Parks. They occur in different parts of this country, which are safe, secure spaces for children. These could be expanded. They work, they provide protection, and they keep children safe. So let's look at what works and let's scale it up.
So one of the report's key findings is also this persistence of malnutrition and food insecurity in South Africa, with a significant percentage of children not receiving a minimum acceptable diet, if you will. How can South Africa then better tackle the growing problem of child malnutrition, but also ensure that children have access to adequate nutrition?
It's a critical priority. It's not one faced by South Africa alone, and UNICEF has a presence in 191 countries. We've seen these issues everywhere. The fact is, poor people are often forced to buy unhealthy food. It's a skewed food system. So we're currently working with government and the corporate sector and civil society to look at the big food industry, to assess how it is that they package foods. Why is it that fruit and vegetables are so much more expensive than so-called fast food? So that's what we need to start off by doing. Then look at examples of countries where it has worked. Currently, we're working on what's called front of office packaging, where you will have the unhealthy ingredients on the front of a package of fast food like you would with cigarettes. So we're finding ways to keep people more informed and to be more vigilant. We're also working with young people throughout the country to inform them about the dangers of unhealthy food and how that affects everything. South Africa has extremely high what are called non-communicable diseases among children. It's not just malnutrition in that sense, it's also obesity. So the impact is very wide. And to answer your question, we're working very much with the corporate sector, government, civil society, and also with partners like you in the media to inform and educate people that the situation is not acceptable and does need to change.
Sudeshan, in terms of education, while the report shows positive trends in school completion, it does also highlight disparities, particularly for black children. What more can be done to bridge this gap, but also ensure that all children, regardless of race or background, have equal access to quality education?
That is a glaring issue in the report. You're absolutely right, Nhlanhla. And we must acknowledge the gains of the last 30 years. There are far more children enrolled in school than there ever were before in the history of this country. So that is notable progress. But yes, the quality has been um, uh, inconsistent in places. So we have working, as UNICEF, we're working on what's called early grade reading programs, where we work with teachers on how to teach reading, on how to enhance the quality of education. Again, we're working with the Department of Basic Education in various provinces to try and pilot programs that empower teachers to teach in a way that improves the quality of learning for students. It's starting from a low base, but it is happening. And again, we need the investment of the corporate sector and civil society to say, this works, let's push that approach and let's make sure that the quality can be improved. I don't think it's helpful to be despondent and assume that it can't be done, because there are many examples where it is working. It just needs to be expanded, and there needs to be the collective will to get that done.
Sudeshan, as we wrap, child protection is another critical issue that was raised in this report. You touched on it a bit earlier on, speaking about high levels of violence, for instance, in the country, including sexual abuse and family violence as well, which is also affecting children, I must say. What immediate actions should be prioritized, at least in your view, to strengthen child protection mechanisms, but prevent violence against children as well?
Now, that is an effort that's across society. That means teachers need very good reporting systems in schools. That means social workers need to be empowered, enhanced, and expanded in their presence in communities. It means that organizations like Childline are able to reach more young people and children as they currently do, but perhaps more. It means we need to work even more closely and support the Department of Social Development with programs that work. And I gave you the example of the safe parks as one, but also proper reporting lines. It means we have to work with the criminal justice system to make sure that children are able to report these crimes in a safe and secure environment. It means working with the police and the legal system as well. South Africa has incredible legislation. We have a remarkable constitution in this country. We've signed the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the first international treaty South Africa signed of democracy. The political will is there, but it needs to be collectively implemented, because it can actually be done. And it starts by all of us saying this is our responsibility. It's not somebody else's. The safety of and security of children and ensuring that they are protected is something we are very capable of doing. Let's also remember that South Africa has an extremely high and successful reporting rate compared to other countries. So people do speak about this. And as we begin the 16 Days of Activism campaign on Monday, let's keep this at the forefront.
Sudeshan Reddy, he speaks for UNICEF South Africa. Thank you so much, shedding light on this critical situation which does face children, but also adolescents in South Africa. Has been giving us UNICEF South Africa's perspective on this important issue.